Rex Cox, the Chief Executive of the British Shipbuilding Office, and he's going to talk about our first session of the National Shipbuilding Strategy Refresh 1 year on. But before I do, I'll start a small video, I hope. There. Rex, welcome to the stage.
Gosh, there's a lot of you. Welcome, and on behalf of the Shipbuilding Czar and the National Shipbuilding Office, a real warm welcome to the first ever National Shipbuilding Office Symposium. And point it this morning as we reflect on the news coming out from San Diego and the opportunities and, dare I say it, threats and challenges that we face, particularly in the realms of capacity and skills, and hopefully we'll get to pick that out a bit. Someone mentioned to me earlier, quoting someone else, that what we've got to be careful about is we have two workforces in this, in the United Kingdom and the United States, and we don't need to just spread that jam thinner, where everyone heads for the sun and the pleasures of Australia. So it's a real challenge. But we will have time to reflect on that. And I'm extremely grateful to you all for giving up your time to attend this event. I'm grateful to SMI and to Tom Chunt for allowing us to double tap to make things easier. We thought getting you all together in one place would cut down on the travel, and I know many of you have had some interesting flight stories. Certainly if you talk to my team, they're never traveling up here again. Certainly not in a storm. But we're safe, we're here, we've got a great venue, and I think we've got a great couple of days coming up, and I'm really grateful to Tom for allowing us to set the policy scene, and then as we move into sort of more industry perspective, which we will get tomorrow with some really great speakers from the various shipyards, and kicking off with a speech from Admiral Sir Ben Key, the First Sea Lord, who I'm sure will have some interesting fly-on-the-wall reflections from yesterday. My thanks also to Minister Ghani, who, as we know, is a passionate advocate for the maritime sector. Minister, thank you for being here. Thank you for making it up. It's great to have you in our corner as we seek to implement the strategy and everything you do on our behalf. So today promises, I believe, to be an insightful day with a wide range of speakers. I'm hoping for some lively debate. Excuse me. I'm hoping for some lively debate, and looking around the room, I think we're probably going to get it. Today's about examining briefly what has been achieved, but most importantly, looking to the future and what we need to do next. A general election is round the corner, followed by a strategic spending review. Today is also about reflecting on the journey that has happened over the last year. And there have been some real challenges, and I'll unpick some of those in a minute. I often remind people, and that's normally the various select committees that I appear in front of and who hold us to account, that's the polite phrase, that the implementation of the strategy is a marathon and not a sprint. And we started here, March the 10th last year, or probably before then. We've got to get to there. Stuff has to happen in the middle, and we're about here at the moment. So bear with us, but it's how we make the next step that I want to unpick today. So let's start with some reflections. The National Shipbuilding Strategy Refresh was launched a year ago on March the 10th by the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, but really the work had been underway for many months, years before it was published, and many in this room were involved in that. And, you know, your DNA is in that strategy refresh, and I'm particularly grateful to you all. It's a complex strategy with many stakeholders from across central government, the devolved administrations, and industry, and as I said, many of you are here today. That time ahead of the launch was spent getting to know the sector, the people working in it, getting to know you, developing the rich picture, understanding all the different government and industry interests and interactions. What levers and interventions already existed? Where were the gaps? How do we fill them? We visited from Scotland to Cornwall, defence primes to family-run businesses. We engaged with civil, offshore, leisure, repair and refit, the whole gamut of the national shipbuilding enterprise. It's not just about big grey ships built for the Royal Navy. Everything else comes to underpin that, and we must never lose sight of that. And we also engage closely with industry, meeting hundreds of reps from across the sector to get your views and hopefully reflect those in the strategy. At dinner last night, someone challenged that the National Shipbuilding Strategy wasn't really strategic. Fine, I'm up for a discussion. I would argue it's taken us a lot further than we were previously, and I'd welcome an opportunity today to explore that. If we don't think that's strategic, what do we need to do for the next chapter to make it more strategic, to take us forward on that marathon, not the sprint? So we listened and we learned, and I think we came up with a strategy that is far better than anything we've had before, and which, if delivered, and that's the key, has the potential to change the shipbuilding landscape across the UK for the better. We've been around for a year now, and to be fair, we've learnt an awful lot. So let's have a quick look at successes. As Rob mentioned, this isn't about pats on the back or successes. This is about acknowledging, moving forward, planning for the next chapter. We're often quick to criticize ourselves, but there is actually a great deal to be proud of. The year has seen some great successes, but I'm not claiming that the strategy was responsible for all of these. From the MOD, who've signed contracts for 5 more Type 26 anti-submarine frigates to be built on the Clyde, with elements of 3 hulls being worked on as we speak and the first hull in the water. The Fleet Solid Support Ship, which will see much needed investment in Belfast and Appledore, and here in Scotland in Arnish and Methil. In Rosyth, Type 31 is progressing well with steel cut on Hull 2 and the placing of 2 support contracts for the National Environment Research Council, or NERC, and the QEC docking contract. To be fair, we didn't perhaps perceive we'd need it quite so soon. On the Mersey and the Fowl, the repair and refit work for the RFA continues apace, with other exciting commercial opportunities opening up, particularly in the offshore renewables sector and the recent contract for Mersey ferries. Other highlights include Appledore Maritime Innovation Centre and the Shetland Islands Council receiving Levelling Up funding, and we will work very closely with those organisations to try and get the right result for British shipbuilding. Coastal Workboats, recent award from the Clean Maritime Demonstration Fund, and we'll hear from Julie later on today. With the Whites and OSIA link-up, the 50 million all-share merger, all coming together and encouraging inward investment, inward skills transfer. I'll be honest, I know their colleagues from international shipyards and organisations in the room. Over the last year, we've had conversations, and the acknowledgement is there that this strategy is changing the landscape in this country. And how do they become part of that? Something has changed. It's exciting, and we're setting out those ground rules. But we actively encourage that inward investment, and our colleagues in the Maritime Capability Campaign Office are at the vanguard of that encouragement. But it's not just about the primes or the large businesses the NSO work with, it's about the SMEs, of which there are many represented in this room today, from clean propulsion providers and unique training solutions to software products that will increase efficiency of the ship, port, or shipyard operation, all exciting innovators. So please, in the networking sessions, reach out have those conversations. That's a key part of what we want to do over the next 48 hours. But the NSBS is much bigger than the sum of the contracts that has been placed. It's about getting the sector match fit again across the whole sector. It's always difficult to be challenged, and I know my boss, the shipbuilding czar, occasionally ruffles feathers when he says X and X and X are not as good as they think they are, therefore we need people to come in and tell us how to do it better. That is a view. I think it's a combination. We should always be prepared to learn, to look at other processes, to see how we can innovate, see how we can make ourselves more competitive on the international stage. And I think that's a healthy thing. Innovate or die, to quote. So the NSBS, as I said, is much bigger than some of the contracts that have been placed. And we've been laying those foundations through, amongst others, the Shipbuilding Enterprise for Growth and its accompanying task and finish groups, and you'll hear more from John Howie in a minute. The UK Shipbuilding Skills Task Force, and delighted that Paul Little and some of his team are here today. They held their most recent meeting yesterday in Queen Elizabeth House, and they're really getting after the nub of the problem. But we've got to be challenging. We can't start here and be fought down there. We've got to start up here to give us that room for maneuver, because if we don't do it now and link back to my opening comments about AUKUS, then I think we're standing into danger. I mentioned the Maritime Capability Campaign Office. The MCCO is already having an impact on UK shipbuilding exports, and they are advocating actively on your behalf every single day. And they're in the room today, so if you don't like what they're doing, or more as I suspect you don't understand what they're doing, then please talk to them. And we've got a session with Ramin later who will tell us a little bit more. And as the Minister mentioned, UK Shore has given millions of pounds to innovative green maritime projects through the Clean Maritime Demonstration Competition winners, and the Department for Transport have recently launched ZEVI, the Zero Emissions Vessels and Infrastructure Fund, and we'll hear from Eamon Byrne later as well. But it would be remiss of me, as I have the stage, not to mention that everything hasn't always gone the way we would have liked from a UK shipbuilding perspective. A couple of examples. The Northern Lighthouse Board replacement vessel procurement, despite being one of the most effective procurement processes we have seen run, and a direct consequence of that was the reduction of the approvals process within the DFT down to 60 days. And that's something that I want to try and roll out across government. It's a challenge, but we're going to have a go. So despite being one of the most effective procurement processes we've seen run, that contract went overseas, and likewise recent orders for ferries which have gone to Turkey. So we haven't succeeded there. I would argue, as I have done in front of select committees, that those procurements were already in process when we arrived. But that's not an excuse. It's an acknowledgement that we need to keep pushing to create the right conditions so that we compete effectively here. And of course, as the Minister gave a nod to, and I can be a little bit more open, we continue to be frustrated by the challenges of bringing in the Hope Shipbuilding Credit Guarantee Scheme. It's doing my head in, if I'm honest. There are clear lessons to be learned and a challenge for how we better incentivize UK builds. And as we start to look towards the next spending review, I want to look at other elements. So, for example, my team will shoot me for showing some ankle here. Can we incentivize, can we do government-backed guarantees that will allow funding for yards to modernize and innovate that are not linked to a direct contracted procurement? You know, these are the things we should be looking at. And we have advice in the SEG from finance experts, and Chris is here today. Chris, it's great to see you. Examining how other countries are doing it. How do we make ourselves as effective from a government perspective and a finance perspective? It could feel uncomfortable standing up here and highlighting these challenges. To be fair, it's my job to be parochial. UK shipyards may never win every contract, but the important thing is that we're now having those difficult conversations and generally considering how to create opportunities for all UK suppliers. So turning to next steps, because I sense a yellow card brewing to starboard. As easy as it would be to look back and reflect on what has gone before, today isn't about patting ourselves on the back or licking our wounds. We need to look at the good and the bad and understand what we as an enterprise can do differently in the future. There's lots more for government to do. The Home Shipbuilding Credit Guarantee Scheme is a start on domestic incentives. How do we go further? How do we make engagement easier? How do we make it easier for you to talk to government, for us to talk to you? How do we address regulatory barriers and reduce bureaucracy and procurement processes, in particular for SMEs who often end up struggling to successfully navigate the process jungle, and in some cases, I've heard over my visits, give up, roll over, allow the primes to take the lead, with all the additional challenges and costs that then puts into the process. I know there are primes in this room that might not like that, but actually, there's plenty of opportunity here for all, and I think if we look at ourselves, we can be better. And how do we create the conditions for domestic and export success? The MCCO is a really good start. So this won't make me popular, but the political momentum, I think, is still there with some challenges, but it doesn't last forever. And we've got a finite window, and industry must continue to step up. For example, when I hear that no UK yard took the opportunity to join the briefing for a major contract opportunity, or that no UK yards have bid on a contract, when I go to major events for ship owners and the only yard present is a foreign one, when I hear about the poor quality of some bids, I reflect that, to misquote, you've got to be in it to win it. There's only so much that the NSO and the government on the industry's behalf can do alone. So yes, it's about what lessons the NSO can learn, but this is a partnership. We all need to make sure we're putting the effort into the right places to make sure we are as competitive as possible. We can hold the mirror up, but we all need to look into it. And we can achieve success through greater collaboration. The whole sector, the whole of government, the yards, supply chains, leading design companies, the skilled workers, our trade unions represented today, and trade associations, and our world-leading academia. The appetite for collaboration is genuinely there, and I see it every time the SEG meets. And the opportunities are there and keep coming. Even if there are challenges with the pipeline, we see significant opportunity in other markets, such as offshore, clean maritime, autonomy, and innovative technology. And I'm really looking forward to unpicking that in some of the sessions later. So the world has changed a lot since the refresh was published nearly a year ago. We've had a full year of war in Europe. We've had 3 prime ministers, chancellors, secretary of states of bays, chief secretaries, and a new monarch. The economy has seen unprecedented change, with the price of everything rocketing. These changes are affecting everyone, and the shipbuilding enterprise is no exception. We find ourselves having to adapt. We have a budget tomorrow, and the spending review not too far in the future. Everyone must recognize just how challenging the fiscal climate is, which shouldn't dampen our ambition, but makes it that much more critical to work collectively and coherently on our forward ambitions. Government, and especially the MOD, is having to make some difficult decisions to balance capability and budget. The $5 billion that was announced yesterday will make a difference, but it won't solve all the problems of inflation. We saw this with a decision to prioritize the multi-role ocean surveillance, the MROS, over the national flagship due to rising tensions with Russia. And the continued political flux is one of the reasons that we have yet, to my dismay, to get the Home Shipbuilding Credit Guarantee Scheme quite across the line. I have not given up. So we need to be realistic in terms of what we can achieve and the pace at which we can do it. But that doesn't mean we can't be ambitious. Publishing the strategy last year was really the first step of this journey, and there's still a huge amount for us as a sector to get after. So you will hear a lot about this today, but I genuinely believe that the offshore renewable market provides a real opportunity for us, and that's why I've made it one of the NSO's priorities for this year. You will hear from Oric and BP later about where they think the enterprise can capitalize. The Skills Task Force will update us about how we can start to address the skills challenge that we're all facing, so we can make sure we are ready to seize the opportunities for tomorrow. We will also hear from the new Department for Business and Trade about the opportunities the export market can provide. The MCCO has been making a huge difference in this field, as I mentioned, led by Mark Goldsack and Ramin Hassan, who's here today. The race to get maritime greener is something we're all involved in, and the interventions that UK Shore, led by Petra Wilkinson and Eamon Byrne, are making a real difference. And we'll hear from a couple of CMDC winners about how much of a game changer that funding will be for their organisations. But before all that, you will hear from John Howie, my co-chair of the Shipbuilding Enterprise for Growth, and he will give you some insight into what we have been discussing and the direction of travel we are taking on your behalf. We've just agreed our priorities for next year, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on these. So to conclude, today is an opportunity for the whole enterprise to come together, challenge ourselves and ask, are we getting this right? Are we heading in the right direction? Do we have the right priorities? Are we being ambitious enough? Are we trying to do too much? Please engage, be challenging, and take the opportunity both today and tomorrow at the SMI conference to help identify how we deliver the result in the next stage of this marathon. Thank you very much.